Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Got a very interesting show today, folks. We're going to delve not only into the mind of a serial killer today, but we're also going to take a look at a very interesting world, the world of sex work in Detroit in the 90s and 2000s. It's an interesting world in that it's an antiquated world. It's a world that I guess you could say, you know, in today's world of technology, you don't have much to do with the streets anymore. I mean, you don't talk much about Johns going to the street, finding somebody who's drug addicted or even has different issues, maybe mental illness, maybe desperation, and dealing with that level of crime so much anymore. It's been taken to technology. I don't believe things are safer. Don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating anything like that. In fact, we're going to talk with Gerald Cliff, one of the authors of the book today, who's a commanding officer of a violent crime section in Detroit. And we'll ask this question because it's a tough situation to deal with. But we're going to talk about John Eric Armstrong, a person who took advantage of a lot of different women, not only in Detroit, but around the world. I should say people, because it wasn't just men, women, a lot of different people around the world and their situations, and tried to blame it on a lot of different things. We'll find out what exactly he tried to blame it on. It's an interesting, layered case, but I want to get right into it, and we'll talk about John Eric Armstrong and this fascinating case. The name of the book, by the way, folks, as I move around this here, is called The Baby Doll Serial Killer, The John Eric Armstrong Homicides. My guests today are B.R. Bates and Gerald Cliff, Ph.D. Let me tell you a little bit about him as we bring him on. B.R. Bates is the longtime author and journalist whose career includes 10 years in the daily newspaper business, including 5 years at the Detroit News, where she worked at the time of the Armstrong case. She graduated from Michigan State University's accredited School of Journalism. And Gerald Cliff, Ph.D., was a commanding officer of the violent crime section that investigated the Armstrong case in Detroit. He has degrees in criminal justice from Michigan State University and the University of Detroit, and has advanced degrees in public administration and urban politics from Wayne State University. Let's welcome them both in right now to True Crime Tuesday. Jerry and BR, welcome in for the first time to True Crime Tuesday.
Thank you. Great to be opportunity.
Thank you both for being here. If I may, Jerry, I want to start out with you first. I brought up in the intro, and I want to start at this point first so that people understand the complexity of that time in history when we deal with John Eric Armstrong and just prostitution in general. And today's high-tech area of prostitution, just what we're dealing with, because I think it's kind of like apples and oranges, isn't it? In that day of John Eric Armstrong, and it sounds like I'm talking about the 1800s versus today, but when we're talking about that era versus now, can you give us a compare and contrast of what exactly we're dealing with when it comes to how easy it is or how complex it is to pick on prostitution?
Well, it's like two different worlds, Tim. And you know, when I first started the department way back in the dark ages, as a beat officer and then as a patrol officer in uniform, I worked two of the areas best known, I guess you would call it, areas of prostitution, as the Woodward Corridor, or the Woodward Strip between 6 and 7 Mile Road and the Cass Corridor. Almost on the outskirts of the central business district in the downtown area. And both of them were known as areas of high frequency of prostitution. And you could get literally anything you wanted down there, from child molesters to suburbanites looking for gratification, I guess you would say. And there were pimps and there were hookers and there were drug dealers and there were hold-up men in both areas. And they're not the only two areas in the city of Detroit where that proliferated. It was just it was just all over the place in those days. Lately, I really can't characterize it from experience because I've been off the department since 2005, and when I retired after 31 years. And but I have been through both areas, and I look for things the average person driving down the road wouldn't look for. And you don't see the street traffic that you used to see. You don't see the signs of rampant prostitution and sex trafficking that you would normally. And it's very, very likely that because it's become easier to find online and much more covert, the people engaging in that type of sex trafficking are, I am sure, much more comfortable doing it that way than being there in person, taking a risk of being robbed and potentially killed in the process of trying to find a little diversion for the evening, shall we say. It's obviously the internet has proven to be a game changer, I guess you would say, in terms of the way the sex trafficking industry works. I don't think it's gone down. They call it the prostitution is the world's oldest trade. I don't think it's suffered any because of the internet. In fact, I think it's probably gotten worse, if not stay the same. It's just probably viewed as a little safer by the customers, although there are still those cases where customers will get lured to a location online and they'll find a man with a gun rather than a prostitute, and they'll lose their life savings and potentially their lives. It's no safer. It's just taking on different, different attributes of the same old evils. Yeah.
I want to hold some facts and figures for later on in the program, towards the end of the program, which I found incredibly fascinating in the book, in different ways that the game has changed, so to speak, even with killers and prostitution. And again, this book I found absolutely fascinating. I think the two of you have done an excellent job of not only being thorough with this book, but coming up with some things that are just not typical of a serial killer / setting the scene of not just Detroit, but setting the scene of a crime book, a true crime book in general, and letting people know about some of this information, really educating an audience of letting them know what's in store when you're talking about really keeping yourself safe. I'm not talking about just, some people think, well, I would never get caught by a serial killer. There's no way. I don't frequent prostitutes, or I don't go into urban areas, or I'm safe in my little suburban area. There's some interesting stuff in this book when even I'm going through it, I go, I look outside my little window here. I sit on my porch and I go, you know what? There's stuff in this book. I go, I see some of my neighbors and I know they could get tagged by a serial killer just by some of the stuff in this book. I was shocked, but again, we can get to that by the end of the program. I want to jump in here and BR, I want to bring you in here and talk a little bit about the beginnings of John Eric Armstrong, who is an interesting case study. And, we think there's a simple formula to serial killers. And, it's just add a little of column A, a little of column B, you put it together, set him out on the world, and there he is. But he was quite the complex person. I want to talk first about how he initially is caught, because it's an interesting way of how he's discovered. Can you tell us a little bit about the story of how he pops onto the radar at first?
Yeah. He actually was identified twice, really, by police in Dearborn Heights and then police in Detroit. The second person that he was known to have killed in Detroit, Wendy Jordan was her name. And he actually, after he strangled Wendy, he left her in Dearborn Heights, very close to where he was living at the time with his family. And That was an unusual case because he really never, he tended to kill in Detroit and leave them in Detroit. He didn't tend to carry them in his Jeep almost all the way home and then dump them over a bridge like he did with Wendy. So the next day he had to work. And on the way home from leaving work a little bit early, because he claimed that he wasn't feeling well, he pulled over to the same bridge. He went to the spot where he left Wendy and he pulled over. And he got out of his Jeep and walked over and looked over the bridge to where he had dumped her. And he saw that she was still there lying on a combination of ice and water. It was January, so it was pretty cold in Michigan. And we don't really know why. Why did he do that the day after? It was January 1st when he left her. And then, he came by just hours later, really, and to check to see if she was still there. I don't know. We don't know. But he did realize, I think he had to have realized there were a couple people across the street and down a couple doors who probably noticed him. He had to assume that they noticed him pull over and look over the Jeep. And so I think that's probably why he flagged them down and he pretended to just discover Wendy. So essentially he didn't have a cell phone on him. He had them call 911 and he called in his own kill. In a sense, indirectly. So why does a serial killer do that? That's a good question. It's not the first time. I was just reminded the other day, Dennis Rader, BTK, he called in one of his own kills, at least one. He called the police and said, you will find a homicide at such and such address. So why do they do that? Is it a need to get caught? I don't know. So that was the first time he came on police radar, and Dearborn police investigated him very strenuously after that. But then meanwhile, he was also killing people in Detroit, and then Detroit police eventually arrested him in April 2000. And that came after he had survivors as well. So he had left some people behind who were very much alive and were able to give descriptions of him to police. And with that information, then Detroit police were able to arrest him because he did not curb his behavior at that point. He was escalating in March and April, and he was right back out there on Michigan Ave hunting down women. So you could argue that was almost like wanting to be caught as well. I don't know.
Jerry, is this the thing where now he exhibited some odd behavior as he's, his story is this, that when he stops at the bridge and he's looking over the bridge, he initially had to throw up. Wasn't this the deal? That's
what he claimed, but there was no evidence that he had thrown up when the scene was processed by crime scene technicians. There was no evidence that he had thrown up. He just claimed that he threw up.
Yeah, and then there's also, wasn't there something about an attempted suicide as well? Wasn't there a ring found there? Or is that?
Yeah, there was. We do know that Armstrong attempted suicide 3 different times. And one time while he was living in Michigan, because, he was born and raised in North Carolina, and he spent years in the Navy, the 1990s in the Navy. And there were earlier suicide attempts. There was one as a teen, and then there was one later. But in months before he was arrested, late in the year before he was arrested, evidently he had tried to OD on some medication. And that's what you're thinking of, Tim, with the ring. He had left a note with his wedding ring, and that's where his nickname Baby Doll came into it too. It was a nickname that he and his wife shared, and he used the term baby doll in the note, like, here's your baby doll, I'm giving my ring back, I'm ending it all, sort of thing. So yes, he did try to commit suicide multiple times.
Sorry, I mixed that up. My apologies. So he makes the excuse that he had to throw up at the bridge, but now things are getting a little convoluted as he's making up his story. There's also, he leaves a little bit of evidence behind in the car that makes investigators think, well, things aren't on the up and up. What exactly do they find in the car?
There was, they did do forensics on the car at the time. This was the year 2000. And Wendy, the night that she was killed, had been wearing some gold shoes. They were gold pumps, and they were sort of the metallic type of pumps that like a bridesmaid would wear at a wedding, like they dye them to match the gown, that sort of, that's how they struck the law enforcement anyway at the time. But they already knew from finding Wendy in the river, one of her shoes was nearby. I don't know if the other one was ever found, but they knew it was a gold pump that the gold pumps that she was wearing. And so one of the investigating officers that was taking a look at Armstrong's Jeep at the scene that night thought that he saw like some gold flecks in the car. So there was that. And then also they did like your typical wipes and fingerprinting of the Jeep, and they did find hairs and things like that were analyzed in the lab.
What is incredibly interesting after that is the fact that they have to start to unravel him. And the really interesting part is the interrogation and the fact that they try to bring him along. Now, the thing I find fascinating, I really find interrogations fascinating, especially of a mind is I don't want to say as twisted as a serial killer, but I want to bring Jerry back in on this. When it comes to talking to the mind of someone who's killed multiple people, do you find that they're generally as supposedly remorseful as John Eric Armstrong, or do you find that the remorse wasn't as remorseful as he claims?
Well, there are some basics to interrogation, little tricks that were taught. One is that you put your subject as at ease as possible, and our investigators spent several hours talking to him about nothing related to the crime at all, just getting to know the guy, talking to him about his years in the Navy, discussing his unique tattoos, talking to him about how he basically his life story, and getting some trust built and getting him comfortable with talking to them, and hoping that he would give them, we're always looking for any indication that he's willing to or ready to talk about his offenses, the reason that we've got him there. But eventually, when we feel that the guy's as comfortable as he can be, we'll begin to direct the conversation around to the reason that he's been detained, that he's been arrested. And that's what we did. In fact, the order was very, very specific from the highest levels of the department. Don't even raise your voice to this guy. We want to make sure that he's comfortable, go out and get him dinner, bring him things to, if he wants a Coke, bring him a Coke. Anything that he really wants, try and give him so that we build this trust relationship and we get him talking. So that we spent a lot of time with our interrogators, interacting with him just basically to build trust and put him at ease. And then what they did was they kind of surprised him with something he just didn't know. And remember, the DNA technology only came on the forensic scene in the very, very late 80s in England, and had only made it to the United States in the early 90s. And here we are in 1999, and it's still being hotly contested in court as to its validity. It isn't like it is now. Mm-hmm. And in those days, we couldn't do a DNA test and get the results back. And what you see on TV, 45 minutes, minus the commercial breaks. Back in those days, getting a DNA test result took weeks, and it cost a lot of money. First off, because the facilities weren't as prevalent as they are now, and second of all, because it was still a developing science, and third of all, because it was, like I said, it was quite expensive, so it was a big draw on investigative budgets. So we used it when we could, when we needed to, and it wasn't at the time, it wasn't a catchphrase in TV police series either. It was relatively unknown. So when our investigators finally got him to a point where he felt comfortable, one of our detectives kind of reached over and touched his hand, and it was sort of a friendly gesture, and yet the next thing that the detective asked him, he says, "John, do you know what just happened?" And he looked at him and he says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I touched your hand." He goes, "Yeah? Well, part of me is now on you and part of you is now on me." He says, "Do you know anything about DNA?" And John didn't know anything about DNA. And it was all explained to him. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. Once he realized that was a new science, that it was becoming recognized as infallible by that time, it dawned on him that there was no way out. We had him dead to rights. There was no way he was going to get away with it because he had been visiting his victims. I don't know how you would like to characterize that, but and leaving DNA that was easily discoverable on all three of the ones that we had. So at that point, he knew there was no escape, and he just began to confess.
It was a masterstroke by the detective that did that. And it was, I mean, everything from, the long hours, and it was 12 to 16 hours of interrogation or something like that. Each time that you would talk about a new case or a new prostitute that he had killed, you Mirandized him each and every time. You were very thorough so that when you took him to court, there were no leaks. There was nothing. It was airtight, that you'd be able to ring him up on each charge, which is a masterstroke.
And that was my boss's mandate, that we make absolutely sure that we watch the interrogation, that we make absolutely sure that there was no potential loophole left for an attorney to challenge. The only thing that could challenge our technique on our investigation on would have been the viability or admissibility of DNA evidence, which at that time was becoming more accepted in courts. But like I said, it took a long time to process. It took a long time to get the results on. And a lot of people didn't know about it, but the courts were just beginning to accept it. But yet defense attorneys were still willing to challenge it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll get to the court proceedings here on the second half of the program. But the fact of the matter is you've got, he went by Eric. He went by his middle name at that point. But you've got Eric sitting there, and he's spewing at this point. And I have to ask you this, Jerry. At this point, the shock has to be amazing that he's just going and going and going, and he's admitting to not one, not two, but multiple prostitutes, multiple crimes. And what are the thoughts here? What are the feelings? What's going through investigators' heads at this point?
Well, like you said, this was like 12 to 15 hours or so into the interrogation process, the interview process, and he began to confess. And when he began to confess the crimes in other countries, other states as well as other countries, we realized we had a bigger problem, or a bigger project, I guess you would say. It wasn't a problem on our hands than we ever anticipated. We thought we had a guy that murdered 3, 4, maybe 5 women in the Detroit metropolitan area. Dearborn is right exactly on our western border. So it was almost the same city. And we worked very closely with Dearborn Heights on their one case. Once we realized that they were tied together, we brought their detective in. But in order to understand kind of what's going on, a little background behind the Violent Crime Task Force. It's a multi-agency task force. It's it was at the time it was housed in the Detroit Police Headquarters, but we had FBI agents, we had state police detectives, we had Wayne County Sheriff detectives, and they all worked side by side. We even had an IRS agent. I think we had a state attorney general's investigator, all assigned into the same office space, was all working the same cases. And so we had basically a borderless law enforcement organization operating out of Detroit Police Headquarters. And when he started confessing to a murder that he did in Norfolk, Virginia, when he was discharged from the Navy, we didn't see that as a big issue to us or a big challenge because we had the facilities to follow up on it. But when he started talking about some of the foreign ports that that the Nimitz put into, which was his ship, we realized we had an even bigger issue. One of the things we didn't have on our task force was, say, for example, an NCIS agent, which we ultimately got once we realized that we had to investigate the maneuverings and the locations of a warship, which typically isn't published in the newspapers. We realized we needed even more resources than we had, but we got them simply by asking and through our connections with the FBI. And then we realized that there were murders that he was confessing to that had happened in foreign countries. So then we had to partner with the State Department in order to get contact with law enforcement agencies in these various foreign countries where he claimed he had murdered women. So that was kind of what made the case so interesting to me, and part of the reason that I kept the files for 20 years, walking around looking for somebody to write with.
It's incredibly interesting. Not only interesting, but what a mess. I mean, what a tangled web. To try and undo all that.
Well, it sounds complex, but when you took it a step at a time, the parts kind of fell together. What surprised me, and I think pretty much everyone else, we assigned the NCIS agent into the same office space that I had. I shared an office with the FBI supervisor from the task force, and we pulled up a desk and gave him a computer and said, "Go to work and keep us informed." And he did, and he was the one that got us the information on the Nimitz, all of its ports that it had visited during Armstrong's naval career, and all of his liberty dates and shore visits and whatnot. And we just followed the logic of the case. We knew where we had to go. We knew we just had to figure out how to get there. And like I said, we already had federal agents working within the agency, so they did the phone calls to the State Department and told them that we had an ongoing homicide investigation with a serial killer, and we needed contact with Taiwanese police or whatever agency might have been involved, if in whatever jurisdiction he happened to have admitted to having murdered. To the surprise of almost everybody in the task force and everybody involved in the case, is that most of these foreign countries didn't really seem to care too much. The comment was made, is almost like they see it eliminating prostitutes as a public service. And that seemed to be, to us, the way they were taking the news, that, we had a guy that was murdering prostitutes in their jurisdiction. We all just kind of looked at each other and shook our heads and went, "Oh, well,
wow.
We got them for ours. That's all we care about." So,
wow. Well, I tell you what, let's take our break here. When we come back, I want to talk about John Eric Armstrong and his motivations for killing. We talk about the psychology of a killer, what motivates them to go out and do this. When it came to actually sitting down and asking this man why, he had multiple reasons, and they're bizarre. As your forces sat down, Jerry, and started to ask him, everything from why he did this when he was overseas to why he did it even in Detroit. There were multiple reasons, and none of them seemed to make sense. But then there was a clinical reason as well. And when we come back, we'll talk to our guests, B.R. Bates and Gerald Cliff, as to why John Eric Armstrong even came up with this to begin with. He had a reason in court. He had a reason why when he talked to police, and then he had just his reasons. Yet, I think there's just one reason in general why he did this. And then later on in the program, we'll tell you why, even in this day and age of technology, you're still in danger of being taken by a serial killer. You're still not safe. It's still happening, folks, and there's new ways of being taken by a serial killer, even in this day and age of technology. The book is The Baby Doll Serial Killer, the John Eric Armstrong Homicides. It's a brilliant book. Murders in the Motor City, Book 1 is the full title. B.R. Bates with Gerald Cliff, Ph.D. That's the entire title. We have a link in the description of this program. I encourage you to go out and get it during the break. It's an excellent book, detailed book. And you'll be able to follow the entire, and when I say entire, this is a detailed entire book of where John Eric Armstrong was, what he did, the process of how Detroit had to follow John Eric Armstrong, not only around the country, but around the world, and track down every single one of his crimes, and eventually get him behind bars, and still to this day trying to figure out what he did. It's an amazing book, and even keeping track of the victims. We'll talk about the victims as well when we come back, because there's a profile of each one of the victims in Detroit, which again I tip my hat to both of our authors about, because the victims are not forgotten in this case as well. So when we come back, more with B.R. Bates and Gerald Cliff right here on the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. The book is The Baby Doll Serial Killer, the John Eric Armstrong Homicides, Murders in the Motor City, Book 1. Our guests are B.R. Bates and Gerald Cliff, Ph.D. We're talking about John Eric Armstrong and the different crimes he committed, not only in the Detroit area, but basically all over the world, everywhere from Seattle to, Jerry, what, Thailand? There was a couple in Thailand?
I couldn't give you the entire list, Tim.
There's a lot. There
are a number of foreign countries, and pretty much wherever the Nimitz put into port, and he was given shore leave, which I'm not familiar with naval procedures in a situation like that, a giant aircraft carrier, and what their liberty policies or procedures are, but I'm sure that he's seen more of the world than I have. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. I think a lot more than most of us have. I want to bring it back to BR here. I want to talk a little bit about John Eric Armstrong and the reasons why. I want to go back to his upbringing, his childhood, and I want to talk a little bit about his machinations as to why he claims he does this. He had a few different reasons as to why he claimed he did this. There was a few different statements he had said as he was being interrogated. One of the things he said, which was alarming, as he said, as he went to strangle, and he would manually strangle a lot of these different women and prostitutes. I hate to use the word prostitute. I really do. Sex worker. I'll use sex worker. He said he would see his father's face before he would kind of black out and go to strangle these women. Can you kind of take it from here and explain a little bit about what was going on with John Eric Armstrong and what triggered him to start committing these murders?
As you said, he did make some claims. After he was arrested, he claimed that his biological father, who left the family when he was very young, like about 5 years old, he made the claim after he was arrested that his biological father had abused him as a child. I talked to someone else in his family, a half brother who was born years later to his biological father, and said, no, there's no way that ever happened. That never happened. He was just saying that after he was arrested. So, yeah, he did make the claim on at least one of his confessions that as he was strangling the person, he saw the face of his father and just this intense rage and all of that. So I don't know. I mean, you could kind of argue that was just thrown in there because, you know, he needed some kind of distraction or something. And then he also claimed that he hated prostitutes. And in fact, you know, he had 5 survivors in Detroit. We know that he killed 5 people, but he also attacked 5 others who survived. So he had at least 10 people he assaulted in Detroit. And I want to say 4, at least 3, but 4 out of those 5 survivors, I believe, did say that as he was trying to choke them, he said, I hate prostitutes, you know, just this intense rage about prostitutes. So, and he even made allusions to that in his confessions that he hated prostitutes. So why? Why did he hate prostitutes? Well, I guess he had to give a reason for that. So he claimed, and this made it into the local news media at the time because it was just kind of a very strange thing to say. He claimed that when he was in high school, he had a girlfriend who left him for someone else because he wouldn't buy her things and this other person would buy her things. And he saw that as prostituting herself. So I don't know. That's a different sort of thing to say. So he threw that out there too, and it really was picked up by the news media, as I said. You know, do either of those things make sense, or do they play into the real motive of why he chose to take human life? I don't think so personally, no. But I guess it's to the reader to decide.
Now, there's a medical issue that comes in here. It turns out that he had sought out, I don't want to say therapy, but he was being seen by a therapist or a psychologist, correct?
Yes. After the suicide note and the attempt to OD a few months, I believe that was in November 99. He was seeing a therapist, and he actually had a note that he carried with him that said that to the effect, signed by the therapist and all of that. So there was concern for his mental health. Of course, you know, if someone writes a suicide note and attempts to OD, there's going to be question around their mental health. So there was that factor, you know, months leading up to his arrest.
What was the name of the syndrome? It was something rage syndrome, which I had never heard of before.
Yeah, and it is a thing. It is a psychological diagnosis. And now that you say that, it deals with, and I can't give you the acronym exactly, because I had not heard of it before investigating this case.
I hadn't either.
But it is an actual condition where the person feels such intense rage that they're out of control, and it might only be a second or two, it might be a minute, and then afterward there's this relief, like, oh, you know, they feel better, they've had that release, and it comes in varying degrees. There are people who have it a little more mildly than others, but you know, in the case of Armstrong, he was diagnosed with that condition by a psychiatrist, you know, in the months between his arrest and his trial, his first trial. So whether or not he actually had that condition, he did claim intense rage, and he claimed to black out too. He claimed to black out without memory of the actual act of killing. Like he would say in his confession, well, I put my arms around her and then pretty soon I woke up and she was outside the Jeep and I was heading home. So you know, blackouts can be a part of this syndrome also.
So that begs the question, if this is an actual thing, then why wasn't he on some sort of heavier drug, not an antidepressant by any means, but something, I mean, keep in mind at this time, we're talking late 90s or mid 90s. late 90s. The only thing that they probably had at that time was probably like a lithium or something like that. Something that would have been mood altering, that would have tamped down that rage.
That is a good question. But, in the $1 million question of why he killed, there's always the argument of nature versus nurture. And was it brain chemistry, or was it something that happened to him along the way? What really was the back of this? So yeah, I mean, drugs could possibly help if he had the prescription for the right thing that controlled that anger issue. But was it really even the anger issue? I don't know. There's just so many questions.
Now, to balance this out, there's an interesting story in the book about a coworker of his. He worked at Target. Okay, which I find a little alarming because I shop at Target. But he had a coworker at Target who was absolutely flabbergasted, which I think is a good way of putting this, that used to get rides from him. Is this the way the story went? Can you tell us a little bit about her and her reaction when she finds out that he's actually popped for this, and what he was telling his coworkers at Target about the whole scenario about when he was being investigated?
Yeah. After he killed Wendy Jordan, Dearborn Heights really had him pegged, but their hands were tied because they were waiting for DNA results. They did eventually find his DNA in Wendy. So that was part of his trial and part of what convicted him. But they had to wait, as Jerry alluded to earlier, DNA results were not quick. They had to wait months, 3 or 4 months for them. So this is January, and Dearborn Heights has him pegged, and they're following him around. They're taking the trash off the curb at the house where he's living. They're really on him. And he knew it. And he would tell people at the store when he was working, yeah, they're following me around. Oh my gosh, they stole my trash the other day. Can you believe that? He was really playing the victim. Like, I can't believe why would they think that I was reporting that I found Wendy? Why would they think that I had anything to do with this? And he was very believable, because the two particular gals that I talked to who worked with him, the one who got rides to work with him, as you mentioned, and then another lady who worked with him, she especially saw him as the boy next door. He was so sweet. He was like a sonly figure to her. She was like a motherly figure to him. She knew someone in the Navy, and so they talked about the Navy angle and all of that. And she liked him. She thought he was a really nice boy. He was 26 at the time. She thought he was a really nice young man. Now, the other gal who did get rides to work from him, she was very young. She was only 16 at the time, and she was working part-time at the store, and he would go pick her up because she didn't have a driver's license, or she didn't have a ride to work. And so she was absolutely devastated. She heard the news report, the TV news report, the morning that Armstrong was arrested, and she was in the next room getting ready for work, and she basically just collapsed. Because the person who had been telling her, there's no way I don't know why the police are following me around. And she totally like, yeah, I don't know why they're following you around. All of a sudden it came crashing down, and he was the person that they were looking for. He was the serial killer behind the 3 women found at the river tracks on the same day. And so it was just absolutely devastating to her. And she was so young, and it was devastating to think that she was sitting in the seat where these other women were sitting. He picked her up for work, picked up them to kill them. She was sitting in the same seat where he had taken human life. And so that was extremely traumatic for being such a young female.
And she had even questioned at one time, didn't she question authorities as to, well, is she in danger, or was she in danger?
Yes. And I think she did talk to one of the officers and said, well, why? Basically, the question is, why didn't he kill me too?
Yeah.
And the officer tried to explain to her, well, he didn't see you in that way. He saw you as a friend. And they were good friends. They were going to actually rent an apartment with Armstrong and his wife. He had a toddler son at the time. And she and her boyfriend, they were all going to get a place to live together. So the two of them were good friends, and they talked a lot on the way to and from work. And I think the officer just explained to her, he basically didn't see you in the same way as he saw these other females. So no, you really were not in danger, not any more in danger than anybody else he worked with or anybody he saw on a regular basis, his wife or, any other females he knew. So, but still, I mean, being a 16-year-old girl, I wouldn't have been able to imagine what that was like as a 16-year-old.
Overwhelming, just overwhelming to the point where it would almost, I would think, destroy your psyche, wouldn't it?
Your sense of who you are. Right. I don't know. There's a whole other psychological study in that too, I bet.
Yeah. There's one other motivation here, I think, when it comes to John Eric Armstrong, that is important for us to kind of address, and that's this. And it's a little bit of an elephant in the room that gets addressed in the book, and I think it gets addressed brilliantly. John Eric Armstrong he glosses over it a little bit, but he also brings it up, and it's a little bit of a red flag he throws at you guys. And he brings up his relationships over the years. He brings up failed relationships, and even the current relationship he's in with his wife / ex-wife, and the fact that he continues to fail at relationships and fails miserably, even down to the fact that his wife didn't want to be functional with him. We'll put it that way, in a nice way, on this program. And so he goes to these prostitutes. I said I wasn't going to use the word sex workers. And he's dysfunctional with sex workers, I think, because he can't be functional. And again, I'm putting on my psychology hat here. He's dysfunctional with sex workers because he can't be functional in a functioning relationship. Is that going too far by saying this, BR?
There were things that he said about his life at home that does make you think that there were some issues there at home. I don't know the nature of any of that. I mean, it's really, really hard to say if his home relationships had anything to do with him acting out, because, he only got married like 1997 or 98. He claimed to have killed people beginning 1992 onward. So then how would we explain all those other murders if we could corroborate them, if they did happen? How would we explain all that based on, his current, he lived with his wife and his in-laws. So he hadn't met any of those people when he was killing all these other people in the Navy. So I don't know. It's just so hard to say.
I think the fact that he had a hard time forming normal, stable relationships, you look at the fact that he was having a hard time forming a regular relationship with a girlfriend. He would go to form a relationship with a girlfriend, it would fall apart. Or you bring up the fact that this girlfriend left him for someone who would spend money on her. The wife grew cold towards him, so he went out and sought sex workers. And then started killing the sex workers. They were disposable, it's the disposable mentality.
I think that in school, the people that I talked to who went to school with him described him as very shy. And I think there was a certain amount of awkwardness there. And even in the Navy as an adult, when he served in the Navy, he was described by at least one of his shipmates on the Nimitz as being big but soft, just real soft. Mm-hmm. And so did he really have a lot of skill in relating to other people? Maybe not, based on what I've heard. I hope you cannot hear my cat behind me.
Oh, no, that's fine.
He's trying to crash the party.
Oh, no,
I just heard him meow. He always does this when I'm on me. But yeah, as far as how Armstrong could relate to other people, you could make an argument based on the people I spoke with that he was awkward in his relationships and did not have a whole lot of people skills. So maybe that played into it.
Jerry, when you're dealing with him in an interrogation setting, Are you finding that are you getting the typical narcissist behavior, but behind a soft mask? Are you finding that he's genuine? What are you finding there that is different from most killers?
Well, he's during the initial stages of the interview process, he's getting more and more relaxed, and he's becoming more and more sociable, partially because the people that he's talking to have a motive for helping him to get to that stage. And they're doing an extremely good job of it, and they're well trained in making that happen. So it's hard for me to say, because my only direct contact was observing the interview process and then asking. I think I asked him one question, and his answer was enough to turn my stomach and made me let the detectives handle it. Rank has its privilege. Mm-hmm. But you realize, since I brought it up, I guess, you realize that when he was leaving DNA, he was leaving it in his victims, not only while he was killing them, but he would visit after they were dead. Okay. And the one thing that I found curious is, and I asked him straight up, what made you decide when it was time to get another victim, or was it just happenstance or the availability of another victim, or what was the deal? And he says, well, no, he says, usually I knew it was time because I couldn't get in the house without my wife smelling the odor of the decomposing body on my clothing, so I had to get a new one. And what he would do is he would just throw the bodies into a culvert, basically, where we found them, and grab another victim and take her to his kill site, I guess you would call it. These guys. I think if you read enough about serial killing and the mentality that goes into it, they have a psychopathic mentality. They're very manipulative. They're really good at putting people at ease and separating themselves from their mental issue that causes them to be serial killers. One of the things, and I know there's a picture in the book from what we called the perp walk, when we had to walk him from police headquarters to recorder's court for his trial. And typically that's when the media likes to take pictures, and everybody knew that, including him. He had asked us if he could have a stuffed teddy bear to carry with him to court, kind of as a psychological crutch, I guess you would call it. My boss hit the roof. He said, absolutely not. All he's doing is he's manipulating the press so that he can plead insanity. And that's exactly what he was doing. The man didn't need a teddy bear. Yeah. Okay. But it was this manipulative aspect of his personality. I mean, he was perfectly aware of what kind of trouble he was in. He was perfectly aware that he was going to have to defend himself for his actions at some point in court, and possibly the dependence on a stuffed animal might soften the court's outlook and think, oh, gee, this poor guy, he's suffering from a mental problem, and maybe we don't need to put him away for the rest of his life. So he may have been, he may have had difficulty making friends and carrying on long-term relationships, but he wasn't stupid. He was a very smart guy, comparatively speaking, and he was very aware of his surroundings, and he was perfectly willing to manipulate them.
Well, so could that teddy bear have been looked at? Could it have backfired on him, Jerry? Could it have been looked at as creepy had you given it to him? I mean, honestly, I'm serious here. I mean, if you look,
creepy is a relative term, and in terms of what this guy did and admitted to, a teddy bear wouldn't have been creepy. Well, a teddy bear would just have been what it was, just a bald-faced attempt to make the jury and the judge think maybe he's a little bit more of a victim of uncontrollable circumstances than the premeditated killer that he was.
Because honestly, when I read that passage, I was creeped out that he wanted a teddy bear. I mean, it wasn't sympathetic at all. I'm thinking that's bizarre that he wanted a teddy bear.
Well, like I said, it was fairly obvious to everybody that became aware of it when he made the request that this is nothing but a calculated move on his part to try and support a plea of mental incapacity.
Yeah, of course, yeah, and you're right. To me, the nice guy thing is one thing, and he might have had a bit of him that had a huge denial center to him. I think that's part of it, a psychopathic denial center to him. But I if there's a guy who's got quote unquote rage syndrome to him, I don't know that there's that much to him that's all that nice, right?
No, I didn't get to know him well enough to comment, Tim. Like I said, I asked him that one question, and that was enough for me. I just let the detectives do the rest of the talking.
Yeah, I don't know. There's I had alluded to, and I want to. There's so much to cover in this book, and again, there's no way we'll ever get to it. Again, I want to encourage people to go get the book and read it for yourselves. The Baby Doll Serial Killer, the John Eric Armstrong Homicides, Murders in the Motor City, Book 1. It's available by Wild Blue Press. We have a link in the description of this program. I want to get briefly to the court proceedings and just mention a few things about the court proceedings. One, the fact that in the very first trial, you had a prosecutor, or not a prosecutor, but a defending attorney that really did try to pick apart the way that you had Mirandized him, and the fact that he tried to pick apart little things, but you'd done such a great job of Mirandizing him, of making sure that that Eric had food, that he had plenty to drink, that he had breaks, that he had everything, that basically it was indefensible. He couldn't be defended, that he had gotten the sentencing that he had gotten. One thing I want to ask you, Jerry, is this. And again, people can refer to the book. There's a point where you eventually, because there's so much that had stacked up with not only people you had found that he had killed, but charges. I mean, there's charge upon charge upon charge upon charge, right? That you eventually go, we got him, we can bury him under the jail. I mean, there's just a point where you go, well, it's either we get information and we get, we find out what exactly happened with these people, and you can only list you can only get so many years in jail before you can plea out and figure out what happened. Where was the line here? Where was the line where eventually the district attorney can say, okay, we can throw a plea deal here for the rest? And at what point do you go to families and say, you know what, your case is the one we're going to plea at? And when does that become acceptable?
I don't believe that we had a situation where he was offered a plea bargain on any of our local cases. The killing that he admitted to in Norfolk, Virginia, when he was discharged from the Navy, we had him on that. The Virginia authorities were approached about taking him there and trying him for that. And we were basically turned down unofficially, okay, because they had the death penalty. And they were aware that he would have 20 years of taxpayer-financed appeals and whatnot before they finally were able to put him away. And they just said, you know what, you guys got him. He's not going anywhere. We're comfortable with you keeping him. I don't think that there was ever a time when the prosecutors contemplated giving him a plea deal to a lesser included offense for a reduced sentence. I mean, they had him dead to rights. We had him on every single one of the homicides in Michigan, and he had confessed to them. There was no reason to deal with him. And I don't think anybody would have been happy about it if they had. And, prosecutors are elected. And that's, I don't think there was much talk at all about plea deals.
With that being said, I think I want to leave the rest of this book for people to go read, because there's a lot here. The one thing I feel bad about is not naming, and BR, I want to bring you in to do this. I want to talk a little bit about some of the victims, or the 5 victims in Detroit. Can you tell us just briefly the names of the women in Detroit that were murdered, and a little bit about them quickly?
Yeah. Monica Johnson was the first person we know Armstrong killed in Detroit. That was in December 1999. She was in her 30s. She had some kids. We don't know what took her out to the street. May have been addiction, like a lot of the other females. We just don't know. I did get a chance to speak with a sibling of hers about Monica, and she was very, very loved. So there's that. And then Wendy Jordan, as I mentioned, was the second victim. That was New Year's in 2000. And Wendy had sisters who really, really advocated for her death. They showed up to trial every day of that first trial of Armstrong, and they were very, very supportive and very strong in their message that, this was not Wendy's life. Wendy's life was not on the street. Wendy's life was in all these other places with her family and doing regular jobs over the years. So that was very moving about Wendy. Wendy was the oldest of the 5 victims. She was going to be turning 40 that year. So third was Rosemary Felt. She was the first person that Armstrong took to the railroad tracks at Military and John Cronk, where he eventually left 3 of his victims, the next 3. And Rose had a brother named Scott that I spoke to for the book. Again, very loved. All these women, and Rose was in her 30s too. All these women had had all this life, these normal lives. That, they're a stereotype. They get to be a name in a newspaper or on a news report. And the stereotype, everything that goes with living on the street and working in the sex trade. And so, but Rose was a sister and a daughter and a mom. I got to speak with Rose's daughter as well. So I really appreciated that. It was hard to get to those victim family members, really hard. But once I did, it was just really such a worthwhile experience to hear what that person was all about. So there was Rose, and then Kelly Jean Hood, again, a wife, a mom, so missed by her children, had this whole life beyond what the addiction did to her. And the family members that I spoke to would tell you that it was the addiction. It was all the addiction. And I don't think, I will just say as a brief side note, that I don't think nearly enough is done in this country to battle addiction. Addiction is so much more prevalent than what we realize.
Yeah.
So, and then finally, Nicole Young, who also went by Robin Brown. She was from Chicago. She wasn't out on the street very long. She was very, very young, only like 16. She gave a wrong age. She had been on police radar a couple times, been arrested a couple times, but she added a couple years to her age to try to be older. But she was very young teenager and had come from out of town and wasn't out there very long before she encountered Armstrong. So she was the last person that he killed in Detroit, and possibly not the last person he attacked, though. But she was the one who was most visible on the railroad tracks that day when the person aboard the Conrail train saw what he thought was a body and realized that he was right. So Nicole was the first one discovered that day in April 2000 on the road.
Okay. And we had mentioned before the break that there, even though we're off the streets so much now and back to technology, there are other ways in which you can got by a serial killer. In the book, there's an interesting fact that you had put in there, BR, and that's this, that only 0.3% of sex workers, or I'm sorry, what is it? 0.3% of the population are sex workers. That's I think is what the factoid was in the book, if I remember right.
Could be.
I think that's what it was. Don't quote me. I'm trying to quote the book. I may not be quoting it correct.
That's okay.
But the more interesting fact in this was this, that you're in danger now of simply walking or jogging out in your neighborhood and being abducted and killed by a serial killer than you are just being out there as a sex worker and being killed, just jogging in your neighborhood. And I sit, it used to be hitchhiking back in the 70s, right? Don't go out and hitchhike because you could be picked up and killed. And then it was, well, if, it was prostitution. If you're out there working on the street, there's a good chance you could be out there and be killed. What was it? 200%? There was the figure of 200% in the book, and I don't remember what the figure of 200% was. But that number stuck in my head for one reason or another. I just get random figures caught in my head, and I don't remember how it gets in there, BR. But then today, and in today's society, we're focused on staying healthy, right? So in my neighborhood, as I sit out on my front porch, me and my little trained chipmunks that I have 4 of them that I name and I feed. We sit out and we watch everybody in my neighborhood walking and jogging and we watch the world pass by, right? And there's people out running and walking and jogging and doing their thing. Well, I have a lot of dusk joggers and nighttime joggers and things like that. And I think to myself, yeah, there's that danger too.
World. Yeah, it's a different world because I remember being a kid and I could be gone all day on my bike and my mom had no idea. It's like, oh, is she not in the house? Okay, whatever. But now it's like we're very, very conscious of that. Kids can't disappear all day on their bike. So we are living, I guess, in a more dangerous world. But if it helps, it is getting harder and harder with modern technology for a potential serial killer to take a second life. It's really getting hard because, for one thing, everything's on video nowadays. You're going to get captured on video when you go outside your house. So there's that we have so much documented nowadays. The DNA technology, the forensic technology has advanced so much. When Gerald's kindred investigate a crime scene, it's really hard to not pick up something that's going to help them, some clues in the case. So I think the number of serial killers, the rate of them, the numbers have gone down in more recent decades, thankfully. But yeah, I think we just always have to be careful. I do a lot of walking. I run also. I do a lot of biking. I do all 3 of those things regularly. And you do have to be careful because each person who, something like that happens to, they never would have expected it. Not me. No, not here in this neighborhood. So yeah, it's scary.
I know, Jerry, just to close things out here, I know, as BR mentioned, the time elapsed in which you can catch a killer now has closed considerably. It used to be it would take so much time to catch someone who would be considered a quote unquote serial killer. And I don't remember what the figure was from the book, but can you give us some sort of an idea in which that time elapsed has closed down?
Well, and this will go back to your a little bit to your previous question, Tim, as to the nature of the world today as it was back as compared to the way it was back then. Yeah, the definition of a serial killer is someone who has murdered 3 people. That's the magic number is 3, and it's gotten easier with DNA analysis to catch them before they kill that many. Doesn't necessarily mean that whatever causes serial killers to exist has decreased any. Just means that we're catching them quicker before they can be classified as a serial killer. With DNA back then, we needed bodily fluid. Now all you need is there's a thing called touch DNA. If we find a gun, if it's been handled, we don't have to worry as much about. I guess you would compare it to preserving fingerprints, because now not only does the gun potentially carry fingerprints, it also carries touch DNA with it from the last person that handled it, the last person that loaded it. The bullets will have touch DNA on it. So science in forensics has advanced significantly in the last 25 years, to the extent that we're catching them quicker. That case in particular, it took us, I think we calculated 41 hours from the time that we discovered the body dump until the time we had Mr. Armstrong in handcuffs. We had help. We had the forensic psychology unit of the FBI working with us and advising us. In fact, they gave us the key piece of advice that actually helped us break the case. They told us, they said, you're concentrating on his successes. Concentrate on his failures. As many people as he's killed, he's likely as to have a couple out there that he failed to kill. Go look for someone who's been assaulted by or in the same way, but yet got away, and in the same area. So that's what we did, and that's where we found our witnesses. That's where we got the people that gave us physical descriptions of the car and the perpetrator, and that's how we were able to crack the case in 41 hours and get him in handcuffs. Like Billy Ray said, there's not just DNA. There's a proliferation of video cameras pretty much everywhere. Everybody's carrying a smartphone. Smartphones can be accessed remotely. They can be dumped. We can get a phone log. We can tell who a person talked to and for how long, and locate them, with the proper search warrants and whatnot. But it's possible. Things that we couldn't do 25 years ago when this case happened, we can do now. And criminal investigation has come light years from where we were in 2000. So.
All right. Good point. Good points. All good points. All right, folks. The baby doll serial killer, the John Eric Armstrong Homicides, Murders in the Motor City. Book 1 is the name of the book. It's a wonderful book, and I highly encourage you to go get it. B.R. Bates and Gerald Cliff, Ph.D., have been my guests. Folks, I want to thank you so much for joining us right here on True Crime Tuesday.
Thank you. Can I add one more note?
Yes, please.
Yeah. The disorder that we were talking about earlier that Armstrong was diagnosed with while he was analyzed by the psychiatrist, intermittent explosive disorder, IED for short. So you can look that up and learn more about it.
That's what it was. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. B.R. Bates, Gerald Cliff. Again, the baby doll serial killer, the John Eric Armstrong Homicides, available by Wild Blue Press. Go out and get it right now. It's time for us now to switch gears. It's time now to bring in Jessica Freeberg, and it's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time, the time you've all been looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And with that, we need a co-hostess. I believe I said who it was going to be in the first segment of this program, but I'll remind you once again, she's intelligent, she's witty. I believe they're one and the same. I have to check my thesaurus. I have one somewhere back in this mess back here somewhere. She's funny. She's quite literate. She has 2 books that are out there right now. I encourage you to go to the link in the description of this program and get one or the other or both. I believe you should get both. They're both pretty darn good, along with her partner, Natalie Fowler. They make quite the team. We've had them in a past episode. You can check that out in the archives, darknessradioshow.com. She's also easy on the eyes. Check the video if you're not watching it already. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Jessica Freeberg. Jess, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great with an introduction like that.
Well, I try.
You know what else is easy on the eyes?
What's that?
This little one.
Oh, look at
Little
her.
puppy on my lap.
Hi.
Hey, hi.
Oh, look at with the paw. The little. I like that. The little paw.
I have Phoebe Buffet on my lap right now in case you're just listening and not watching.
Phoebe Buffet. Hi, Phoebe. Ah,
She's a good girl.
yes, she is. I noticed she was critiquing your writing the other day.
Actually, that was Winston Churchill. I have two dogs that look almost identical.
Oh, that was Winston. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that was Phoebe that was doing that.
Yeah, no, she doesn't critique. She just likes to lay around and be lazy. That's beautiful.
Well, dog after my own heart. I do that too. I like to lay around, look beautiful, and occasionally I'll
get rubs.
Yeah, I do. Yep, scratches and rubs. Yeah, and yeah, that's what I do. Yep.
Life.
Yeah. Until the chipmunk comes up and hits me upside the head and says, "Peanut time." That's pretty much what my life is. Yeah.
And then the squirrel throws a plate at you.
Oh, they did it again the other day. There were plates overturned everywhere. But you know why?
No.
You know why? It's because I'm leaving the empty plates out overnight because, we got the raccoon situation. So
yeah,
I left an empty plate overnight. They got pissed off and they overturned all the plates.
They're so funny.
They are. They're mean.
They're mean.
There's a bunch of mean animals out there.
They're mean and delicious.
They're mean and delicious. Yes. They're made of protein.
Just kidding. I do not advocate eating squirrel.
Well, they're tasty. You know who else is also a bully, I found out?
Who?
Blue Jays.
They are?
They are. They're bullies.
They're so cute, though.
They are, but and they're quite, they start out nice. When I found out they love peanuts as well. Blue Jays do. Because, I've got this bush right next to the people. I bet you do. You need to trim that thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding. But right next to the porch, I've got like this little, there's this little cup on top of the bush, and I put peanuts up there. Well, that's where the chipmunks are used to climbing up there and getting a peanut out of there. But they've been overrun by the Blue Jays because the Blue Jays like to fly down and get a peanut out of the cup. There's a war on now, Jess, between the Blue Jays and the chipmunks.
It is it's like the North versus the South.
I know, right? So here's what happened the other day. So Indy comes out and he looks at me and he's like, "I'm going up into that bush and I'm going to go get a peanut." So he runs up the up the main trunk of the bush, and he goes up to get a peanut, and he gets up there and he kind of looks at me like, "Look, I'm going to get a peanut." And he goes to grab a peanut and down flies a Blue Jay, and the two of them meet eyes like, "What are you doing up here?" Well, the Blue Jay looked at him like, "This is my bush." And Indy looks at him like, "This is my bush."
It's on.
And the Blue Jay took two, he kind of gave him the head bob, the head fake, like, "You better get out of my bush." And Indy's like, "I don't like your sharp beak. I'm getting out of this bush." So, and Indy's pretty brave. He's not his daddy, Logan. Logan would have put his head down and knocked the Blue Jay out of the bush. He was pretty brave.
Yeah.
But Indy's no Logan. So he was just like, "Yeah, I'm getting out of the bush. I'm not getting impaled by that thing." So.
Smart boy.
Yeah, so he gave up. But, yeah, but they're bullies.
Yeah. And they're hungry.
And not only that, but I put a video up. You can see it on the video page of darknessradioshow.com. They also swoop down onto the lawn. I put peanuts on because Spud has a little spot right near the drain pipe where she likes to sit and survey the neighborhood. She likes to keep watch over the neighborhood. She likes to sit there like a little gangster, right? And just hold down the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Well, I put some peanuts down on the lawn so she's got a little snack, right? So she can just sit there, much like you said, she, just lay there and be lazy, right? So she likes to sit there and be lazy and eat peanuts, and like she likes to watch the kids come home from school and stuff like that on the bus, and she has a routine. Well, the Blue Jays will swoop down on the lawn and take one from her right in front of her.
How rude.
Yeah, well, they did that the other day, And when they did that, she turned around and looked at me and she started to complain. Like, hey, what are you going to do? Go get him. Like, take care of this. And I actually captured it on video. She complained, actually. I made a 16-second short out of it. She actually complained for 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
She chirped at me for 5 minutes, Jess.
So funny.
I didn't know. I wish I could have understood everything she was saying. There was probably a lot of swearing in chipmunk.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I think she delivered her message loud and clear.
Oh, yes, she told me. She told me where, pardon my language, where the bear shits in the buckwheat. I think I got the message. Yeah, but she was not happy that this blue jay swooped down and took her peanuts. She was not, but she wasn't going to fight them because they got
critters are so funny.
Yeah. But I was just like, well, as much as you don't want that sharp beak, I don't want it either. So
no doubt.
Yeah. So, it's you and me both, kid, aren't going to fight that thing. So, yeah. Well, with that, we got a pretty busy Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals today. By the time we're done with today's show here, Jess, you will know the phrase mollywop by a mop.
Wow, I'm going to use it every day.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a nice little alliteration there. Mollywop by a mop. It sounds like something you would pull from the 20s. By the way, before we get into this thing, we got a little giveaway, a little surprise for people that we should tell them about, right?
Yes.
Right. So why don't we do that before we get in? But let me finish a little promo here, and then we'll tell them about the giveaway.
Okay.
Also, in today's show, we'll tell you why an ice cream sandwich can be dangerous. Dangerous to the point of arrest.
I'm intrigued.
There you go. Also, why a wheel of cheese could be worth $400,000 and arrest worthy. That came from, I believe, might have been Tony, I think, sent that in today. Florida man's on the docket, of course. Spaghetti a la battery charge. We'll tell you about that. That's coming up. And, of course, we've got our not safe for work stories. They're on the docket today. Okay, so we told you we have a giveaway for you. We got a little Halloween treat for you. It's our way of celebrating the holiday. Of course, it's our favorite holiday here on Darkness Radio and True Crime Tuesday, of course. So, Jess, you have a little surprise for us.
Yes, I have a surprise. I was thinking it would be a lot of fun to just share an opportunity with our listeners to win a chance to come to the Palmer House with you and I in November. So I wanted to offer a giveaway to our listeners. We have that one room remaining open. So you would have to pay for your room for the weekend, but I would love to gift you with a ticket to join us if you're able to come that weekend. So we'll just draw one person. I think what we'll do is we'll just say, you get a ticket, and if you want to bring a friend, you get 2 free tickets. I'm fine with that. So
Really?
Yeah, why not? There's only one bed in the room, so make sure if you're bringing a friend, it's someone that you don't mind sleeping with.
Wow. Okay. Hey, salacious. No, I'm just kidding. So, someone you don't mind sharing a bed with. Okay. So,
yes.
There you go. Not in that way, but someone you don't mind cuddling with. Or getting a rollaway with. I'm sure they have a rollaway or
yeah, they do have rollaways.
There you go. But wow, so that's pretty generous. So 2 tickets for the Palmer, and that's November 14th through the 17th. I remembered.
Yes.
Yep. November 14th through the 17th. I better remember, otherwise I'm going to miss the date.
You better be there.
I better be there. So myself and Jess and Ghost Stories Inc. up there at the Palmer House Hotel in Sauk Center. And we're going to have a wonderful time up there. Of course, we'll be doing some ghost hunting. There's some other stuff on the docket as well. Jess has got lots of stuff. And by the way, we have a link in the description of this program, so you can check out everything that's in store there. And it's a 1920s theme. So make sure that you bring either your zoot suit or your flapper dress or something to get into the spirit of things, right?
Yes, I tried mine on too and it fits. I'm good.
There you go. See, look at that. So, again, you do have to pay for that room, but you get 2 free tickets for the event. This is only one winner for this, and this is how you're going to register and win. You're going to email Jessica at jessicafreeberg.com. Now, when you email her, you're going to leave your name, your address, your phone number, and the phrase that pays, which is, I want to ghost hunt with Jess and Tim. All right? You got to do it in that order. I don't want your emails. Don't send them to me. All right? You're going to email Jessica at jessicafreeberg.com with your name, your address, your phone number, and the phrase that pays. I want to ghost hunt with Jess and Tim. All right? Just like that. And Jess will randomly draw along with her daughter, and we'll put the video up on both on social media, and we'll air the video here on the show and let you know who that winner is next week. You have 1 week to enter. So get your entries in right now. You got 1 week. That's it. So 1 week, and then join us November 14th through the 17th up at the Palmer House. We're going to have a good time. So there you go. I like it.
I do too. I'm excited. I love giving stuff away.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. So we're going to have a good time up there at the Palmer, and you can too, but you got to get your entries in right now. Tick, 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 tick. Time is ticking away. So while you're watching this show or listening to this show, get on the old Google machine or whatever it is you're using, whether it be your phone, your tablet, your Google machine, whatever it is that you're, well, it's obviously not the device that you're watching now, but you probably have a second device. Everybody's got multiple devices. So just jump on that device and send us your entry. All right. With that, let's jump into Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. Our first story, Philly always does it right when it comes to violence, right? Philadelphia does. I think that's pretty much the...
Nobody throws down like they throw down in Philly.
That's right. When you go to the stadium complexes, they bring batteries to throw at you. I mean, come on. Nobody does it like Philly. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Well, it turns out here, speaking of, a man was beaten with a mop near the stadium complex in South Philadelphia, according to police. New ways of violence here, Jess. Police are investigating after officials say one man attacked another with a mop near the intersection of Broad Street and Patterson Avenue early on Monday. A man has been hospitalized after being attacked by another individual wielding a mop in an incident that happened near the stadiums in South Philadelphia on Monday morning. According to police, the incident happened around 4:20 a.m. near the intersection of Broad Street and Patterson Avenue. At that time, police said a man sitting on a bench near Energy Station was approached by another individual and an altercation ensued. Somewhere in here, I'm getting the vibe of like a Bruce Lee type thing. You know, a guy's like, what do I have at my disposal? And he sees a mop and he goes, what? And he kicks the mop handle. And it's not quite going the way he thought it was going to go, right? Like he thought he was going to just like unscrew the mop off of it and grab the handle and start doing the fancy stick thing.
Right.
Yeah, like he's going to use it like a bow staff, but
somehow I don't think it was probably that graceful, but I love the image of it in my brain.
Right. But then he grabs it and then he just swipes the guy in the face with the mop itself. He just ends up getting a really dirty mop water face.
Ew.
Yeah. And he just ends up with some sort of weird cold from it.
What's worse than dirty mop water in like a public place? You know, like in the public bathroom. And then you got slapped in the face with it. Right.
And you know that smell of like cold, dirty mop water, you know, and having to carry that around with you all day. I mean, that's
nasty.
Yeah, that's the ultimate insult right there. Following the incident, the victim was taken to a nearby hospital for observation because dirty mop water will do that for you. Ew. During the course of the altercation, by the way, police claim the man who was initially sitting on the bench found a mop on the ground and attacked the victim with this improvised weapon. Again, like I said, he found it on the ground and he went, oh, if I could even like lift it up with my foot, and kick it up and then catch it and then just unscrew it. But it never comes out that way, right? It's not that quick little, flip Bruce Lee thing. And then
I'm just envisioning it as more of like a drunken, clumsy.
Yeah, like the Jackie Chan deal, right? Yeah, but it never comes out that way. The other man was taken in for questioning, and police officials say he told officers he used the mop in self-defense. See, I'm telling you, he had visions of martial arts films. Just saying. Law enforcement officials said the investigators are reviewing surveillance cameras at the scene to determine how this incident unfolded. An investigation, officials said, is ongoing. I'm sure there's going to be lots of giggles at the video when they eventually watch it. The guy probably went to kick it up and it probably hit him in the head, and it just smack right in the forehead, and he probably stumbled around, and the other guy probably laughed at him and pointed, and he's like, I'll get you, and he shook the mop head at him, and he's like, why don't you dance with that thing for a little bit and entertain me some more, mop boy? Why don't you go get my fries after you're done with that? Fast food boy. I don't know. Just imagining the fight didn't go very well. That's all.
I don't think so.
No, nothing like that. From one deadly confrontation with a mop to another with a repo man trying to seize a truck. I saw this story and I was reminded of a buddy of mine who was a repo man for quite a while. He was, he is a musician, but he had to have a day job because he's got 5 kids.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And music doesn't pay the bills alone. So he decided, I got to get a day job. Well, actually it ended up being a night job. But with this, Jess, we're going to Saginaw, Michigan. An Isabella County man is charged with trying to kill a repo man who seized his truck. We go to Mount Pleasant, Michigan. After allegedly opening fire on a repossession agent who was seizing his vehicle, an Isabella County man has been charged with 4 felonies. 29-year-old Travis C. Moose, yes, a moose opened fire on a repo man. On Thursday, October 24th, appeared in Isabella County District Court for arraignment on charges of assault with intent to murder, assault with a dangerous weapon, and 2 counts of felony firearm. That doesn't even make sense. 2 counts of felony firearm. I could see felonious firearm, which is a great rap name, by the way. The first charge is punishable by up to life imprisonment. About 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday, October 22nd, sheriff's deputies responded to reports of a man firing a gun at a tow truck driver in the 5000 block of South Lincoln Road in Union Township. A detective was across the street on separate matters when the call came in. The detective and a deputy quickly located and arrested the suspect, identified as Moose. I only know one person in this world identified as Moose, and he's a wrestler in TNA. I don't know very many people who call themselves Moose.
Yeah. It's a good nickname though. I like it.
It is. It's a great nickname.
I'd be really offended if you started calling me Moose, but
I'm not going to call you Moose.
Don't do it.
No. Not even close. Investigators determined the tow truck driver had been repossessing a vehicle from Moose's parents' residence. The driver spoke with Moose beforehand, explaining why he was there. An affidavit authored by a deputy states. As the driver began towing the vehicle away, he saw Moose driving north on a green farm tractor. Something tells me that chase isn't going to go well. Tow truck versus green farm tractor. The repo man then heard the distinctive pop noise of a shotgun. I don't think shotguns go pop.
They're a little bit more of a bang.
Yes, more bang than pop. That's right.
Kabang.
That's right. Kabang. The repo man saw Moose wave a gun at him, then fire an estimated 5 to 6 times.
Holy cow.
I think Moose probably has the vision of a moose because 5 to 6 times she probably hit something significant.
Yeah, but what a raging lunatic.
Right? The
Wow.
the repo man was uninjured, thank God, by the bullets. Moose's mother told deputies her son drove a tractor to her place after the repo man arrived. She was in her yard when she heard a gunshot and saw her son aiming a handgun in the air. Wait a minute. So he had a handgun on top of the... He had a handgun as well on top of the shotgun. Moose came loaded for bear.
What was this like the way he just goes about his day? Like he just walks around with a shotgun in one hand and a handgun in the other?
I guess there's more than the repo man coming after Moose. Right? I mean...
Moose has a lot of issues.
Moose does have a lot of issues and evidently a lot of creditors, if you know what I mean. It's just, wow. So deputies recovered the 9mm Smith & Wesson inside the house and 2 fired casings outside. A civilian witness who was driving by also told deputies they saw Moose firing at the tow truck and its driver. Moose told deputies he fired 2 shots in the air to get the repo man's attention. Oh, that'll do it.
Mission accomplished.
Yep. Hello. You have my attention now. While in the back of a patrol vehicle, Moose bashed his head against the plastic divider, according to Sheriff Michael J. Main. As a result, deputies took him to the local hospital for an evaluation, then lodged him in the Isabella County Jail. Moose is to appear for a preliminary examination on November 7th. Moose has a screw loose. We'll just put it that way.
Probably more than one.
Yeah. Now, this got me thinking. Actually, my buddy, who will remain nameless, told me a story. He actually told me more than one story. He actually told me about a time where he was shot at as well.
That's crazy. Well, that's just, you have such a small ability to see into the future if you're doing that. It's just a vehicle and versus going to prison for killing someone.
Oh, he told me it wasn't just once, Tim. He said, I've been shot at multiple times.
Oh my gosh, that's so scary.
And he said people actually think if they take shots at you, if they physically, and physically he's been taken after multiple times. He got out of the repo game because people thought, you know what, if I take a shot or shoot at these guys, they'll let me have the car. And he's like,
that's crazy.
He's like, you know what? Repo guys are tough. They're like, nope, I'm coming away with the car. There's nothing you're going to do that's going to keep these guys from taking the car. I mean, if your car is being repossessed, it's coming with me.
Yeah.
So, you can think you're, what's the saying? It's something brave and crazy tough, or crazy tough and something brave. I forget what it is, but yeah, you just, if you think you're getting away with it, you're not getting away with it. They'll take it. They will get it. I mean, I told this,
or they'll die trying.
That's right. I mean, I told the story quite a few weeks ago about an ex-roommate of mine who tried hiding his vehicle all over the city when he would go to work. He would hide it in garages. Yeah, and then he would park like a mile away, 2 miles away, 4 miles away from work, and then he walked to work and finally ended up getting caught. But yeah, I had another buddy who was a repo man, but yeah, he seriously got shot at multiple times. People just, they lose their minds when they're about to lose their vehicle. And they think if I take shots at this guy, they don't care. They don't care that repo men or women have families.
Yeah. Again, I think it's just like the inability to look ahead. Like you're really just thinking like, so in this one tiny little moment, you're not processing the outcome or the future for yourself or the person you're shooting at.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not thinking of that person as a person or that they're doing a job. That's just a job. That's just a vehicle. You'll get another one. Or that's a real person. And there's real consequences, you know.
Yeah.
It's and that, you know, it's just ridiculous. The fact that you're going to that extent over a vehicle, right? Let's move on here. Speaking of it's just a vehicle, when I think about vehicles that get real speed, Jess, that you can really get speed out of, that you can rev up and take to over 100 miles an hour, right? I mean, when you think of speed demon cars, I mean, what do you think of when I say speed demon? What type of vehicle do you think of?
Well, you know, any of the sporty cars that usually qualify a man as having like a midlife crisis, you know, like the little two doors, Ferrari, Porsche, you know, any of those type of vehicles.
The SDS vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if I said to you Hyundai Elantra? Would that pretty much qualify as one of those?
No, not at all.
Well, one man in Wellington, Connecticut, evidently said to himself, I've got 2 inches of swinging death, and I'm going to go 118 miles an hour in one.
Oh, my.
It's true. A man was arrested for going 118 miles an hour on I-84 in Wellington last weekend.
That's a little fast.
I didn't know a Hyundai Elantra went 118 miles an hour.
I feel like it was probably like shaking, you know, like the steering wheel, and like he's just like the whole car is like not made for this.
The entire chassis, both axles, every lug nut, everything was shaking. Yeah.
I had a Corsica back in high school and my early college years, and I drive that, you know, fast-ish, you know, say I would get up to 80 and the whole thing would start just shaking.
I want to know how hard you had to kick the hamsters under the hood in order to get to 118 miles an hour.
I know, that's crazy.
That's nuts. State police say that around 7:20 a.m., that's right, this happened in the morning, you really had to be late for work in order to go 118 miles an hour, right?
Wow, he had places to be.
You're on your last strike at work when you're going 118 miles an hour, right?
I think so.
I mean, that you really...
Or you're taking a kid to a show. I have gone pretty fast when I thought I was going to be late to get Ella to the theater.
You've really pissed off your daycare provider when you need to be there that quickly. That you're like, 118 miles an hour. So it was around 7:21 a.m. where a trooper was patrolling I-84 near exit 69 in Tolland, when they were passed by a blue Hyundai Elantra with New York license plate. Of course, the guy's got New York license plates and he's going 118. The trooper began to speed to try and catch up to the operator, identified as 33-year-old Aaron Taryn. Best name ever. Of Brooklyn, New York. Of course, he's a Brooklyn.
I love it.
Yep. With the use of a speedometer, it was found that he was traveling in the range of 113 to 118 miles per hour in a 65.
Wow. Doubling it.
Doubling it up. That's right. Well, he's from Brooklyn, so, you know, got everything's twice as fast in Brooklyn. The trooper then turned on their lights, and Taryn pulled over to the right shoulder where he was taken into custody. When asked why he was traveling at such a high rate of speed, he said he was traveling to Salem, Massachusetts for Halloween festivities.
You can't blame the guy. I mean, I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I got to get there.
He's off to Salem.
That's right. I'm off to Salem. I got to get there quickly. I got to get there. I got to beat the crowd.
My broom is broken, so I can't fly fast enough, so I have to drive.
There you go. Taryn is charged with reckless driving. He was later released on a $500 bond and is scheduled to appear in Rockville Superior Court on November 13th. I just find that very interesting that was That was the excuse he pulled out for going 118 miles an hour. I gotta
get to Salem. It's almost Halloween.
It's almost Halloween. I gotta get to Salem. By the way, tell me that his broom didn't get really, really high, Jess. Look at how high he is on that broom.
I think his broom was made out of wacky tobacco.
Was it, you think? Yeah.
Maybe a little.
The highest of the high he got on
He looks really happy.
He does look extremely happy, doesn't he, to be going to Salem? Just saying. Speaking of getting up there high, how cold do the ice cream sandwiches get on JetBlue? Well, as it turns out, pretty cold. A New Jersey woman is suing JetBlue in federal court over an ice cream sandwich that she claims was dangerously cold, alleging that the cabin crew should have warned her that the treat was frozen solid.
Why?
Now, how many ice cream sandwiches have you had in your lifetime, do you figure?
I mean, I don't even think I could count because I really love a good ice cream sandwich.
Yeah. And
they're always frozen.
Yeah, they're pretty much all frozen, right?
It's kind of the deal.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had melty ones that, you know, kind of bend a little bit when you bite into them. And I've had some that have been rock hard, right? Where you got to kind of let them melt a little bit so you can bite
Warm it up in your hands or something before you eat it.
But generally you do the little bendy test, right? You do the little with your fingers, you kind of bend it a little bit, see if it'll give way a little, you know, right? Just to
use a little common sense, Tim. Is that what you're saying?
But common sense isn't common, Jess, right?
Oh.
Right. In a lawsuit filed on Tuesday and obtained by The Independent, Carla Quinones says JetBlue was negligent for serving food at a temperature below what is reasonable or safe for consumption. The carrier then compounded the problem by failing to warn her of the dangerously cold temperature and solid state of the ice cream sandwich, which she was served, according to Quinones' complaint. The ice cream sandwich that defendant served to plaintiff was frozen solid and caused plaintiff to sustain severe bodily injuries, including a root fracture of tooth number 10.
What?
Whoa.
She never had ice cream before? This is so weird.
Did she think she popped bubble gum into her mouth?
Wow.
How hard did she bite into that? Bubble gum. Wow.
Oh, my.
By the way, JetBlue representatives did not respond to requests for comment on Thursday, probably because they were shocked that they were even sued over this. On August 20th, Quinones and her partner were aboard JetBlue Flight 1907 from JFK to Paris when, during the meal service, Quinones was given a chomp-sized strawberry shortcake ice cream sandwich, which sounds delicious if you ask me.
I know.
Made
a little jealous.
I know, right? Wish I had one of those. Made by the Nightingale Ice Cream Company. But Quinones argues no one said anything about how hard the treat would be, and she immediately cracked her upper left lateral incisor when she bit down. Again, bit down with what? The force of a pit bull?
Just don't understand.
It's an ice cream sandwich. Relax. Boy, it gets weirder from here. Okay, so she then bit down. This necessitated an emergency tooth extraction immediately upon landing. A subsequent implant. Where do you find this? And first of all, where do you go in Paris the minute you land to get all this? I mean, not that it's unheard of to go get an implant in Paris, but I mean to find first of all, if you have dental insurance, but then to find the provider and then get all this done, or do you just pay cash out of your pocket?
The same day,
right?
It takes weeks to get into our dentist,
right? And then get it all approved, and unless you're just paying cash out of your pocket. But even then, don't you have to get the bone implant and all this other stuff?
I don't know. I've never had it done before, but never bitten into ice cream like an animal and
Right. Yeah. Just, yeah, I've never done that either. I tend to be a human being about it. So immediately upon landing, she got a subsequent implant and continuing care upon returning to the United States, according to the complaint, which blames Quinonez's pain, suffering, and mental anguish solely on JetBlue's negligent acts. See, normally with an implant, you have to get the bone. It's not a graft, but you have to get the bone implant first, and then they put the post in. But they can't put the post in until you have sufficient bone put in, or make sure that there's sufficient bone there, and then they can put the post in. But the post has to settle for a good 2 to 3 weeks before you can even.
Yeah, so they wouldn't have been able to do all of that same day.
No, they could have started it, but there's no way that they could have finished it in one day. Bizarre. Okay, so with that, in June, JetBlue was sued by a passenger who said she suffered disfiguring burns when a cup of dangerously hot tea spilled on her chest, buttocks, and arm during turbulence in July. Who orders the tea before you go into turbulence and then does this?
Give me a little ginger ale. You can't get hurt with that.
Right. Just pour me a Coke, right? These people. California woman sued JetBlue, claiming her cancer returned after she was thrown off a flight following an argument over her emotional support bulldog with a crew member in August. A traveler headed to the Bahamas sued JetBlue after fracturing her ankle and a freak seatbelt mishap. Last month, a JetBlue passenger sued over a hard landing that she said gave her a concussion. JetBlue has some issues, folks.
Wow. Did all of these people win? Because if so, I think we should fly JetBlue and never work again.
Yeah, maybe we can get a sponsorship and go fly JetBlue. In-flight injuries are certainly not unique to JetBlue. A Michigan woman recently sued American Airlines over a coffee spill she said caused severe first and second degree burns over her legs, thighs, and genital area. I think hot and cold items are something you probably should avoid on flights.
Maybe. Although I will say, if you're on a JetBlue flight and you're sitting next to me and they give you ice cream, you should just give it to me.
Yeah, just give it to Jess.
I'll take care of it for you.
Yeah. She'll blow on it for you, so it'll be a little warmer for you. She'll do this and then hand it back to you.
I'll just eat it.
Yeah, she'll just eat it. No worries. By the way, as far as Ms. Quinonez goes, JetBlue claims they have an obligation to keep passengers safe while flying, and by allowing Quinonez to crack her tooth on a serving of rock-hard ice cream, Quinonez claims they breached its duty of care to her. According to the complaint, she's been forced to lay out significant expenditures for treatment, which remains ongoing. According to Quinonez's complaint, Quinonez bears no responsibility for her injuries. According to the complaint, she's demanding a money judgment against JetBlue to be determined by a jury plus legal costs. Her attorney, Christopher Fraser, did not return messages to Yahoo News. Crazy story. If you thought we were done with flights today, Jess, we are not. This story came from another one of our listeners. By the way, if you have a story for us for Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals, you can send it to me at tim@darknessradio.com. We're headed off to Ohio. Actually, we're headed off to Florida via Ohio, which, by the way, when you're in Ohio and you say to yourself, you know what, I'm a mom here in Ohio. I need a little bit of the high life here in Ohio. I think I'm going to go to Florida and get some liposuction surgery. But
okay.
But what do I do with my kids? Well, I'm off getting liposuction. What do I do, Jess? What do I do? Well, let me tell you what one mom did. She left her 3 kids at home alone in Ohio while she jetted off to Florida for a friend's liposuction surgery. She's like, I'm going to be there for my friend, but kids, here's some Pop-Tarts.
I'm not for my kids.
That's right. Kids, here's some Pop-Tarts, some mac and cheese, and a couple of juice boxes. You just sit here and watch SpongeBob. I'm going to go with Lorraine here, and we're going to go suck the fat out of her ass. What do you think about that?
Out of her ass.
That's Mother of the Year material right there.
I think so. I mean, I feel a lot better about myself as a mom right now, so I appreciate this story.
I think you should, yeah. I think you're killing it right now. That's for sure. An Ohio mother has been convicted of endangering her children after leaving them to go on vacation in Miami. Dominique Knowles was charged with 2 counts of endangering children earlier this month. She had left her 7-year-old twin daughters with her 10-year-old daughter for 3 days in February to go to Florida. What do you think? 10-year-old old enough to watch a 7-year-old for 3 days?
No. Mm-mm.
No, not even close.
No.
A teacher concerned about the children's well-being requested a welfare check. Once officers arrived at Knowles' apartment on February 22nd, they found the unit in disarray. You think?
Just some kids fending for themselves.
Yeah, it's just a Lord of the Flies situation is all that is. Garbage bins and bags were strewn all over the floor, court records state. The children told an officer they did not have a cell phone to contact their mother. Why should they? Mom didn't want to be bothered.
Oh, no. So they didn't have a way to even call 911 or anything if something bad happened.
Well, mommy didn't want to be disturbed. Why should the cops be?
Yes.
But she had been communicating with them through Nest cameras located around the unit and FaceTime on a MacBook tablet. So she would pop up on a tablet and be like, go to bed now.
That's crazy.
Isn't it, though? Yeah. So she'd pop up and say, you didn't burn the house down yet, did you, you little bastards? And then she'd get off the tablet. And then that'd be
so sad. I just want to take these children and bring them home with me.
No, that's so nice of you. I mean, now you bring them home with you, but you wouldn't leave to go get some Botox or anything, right? I mean, you wouldn't do that.
No, I mean, If I did, I would just take them with me.
Okay, good. All right. Now, would you leave them at the hotel while you went to go get the Botox, or would you bring them with? I mean, would you actually bring them to the clinic?
No, I would just bring them along. I do have a funny story about plastic surgery. When I couldn't find someone to take my son, he was thinking kindergarten at the time, and I was going with someone who shall remain nameless in my family who was getting their breasts augmented.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they didn't want to go pick out the size alone, so I was going with them, and I couldn't find anyone to take Logan. So I'm like, we'll just take Logan with us. So Logan just sat in the plastic surgeon office playing with the implants because he got to feel the sizes.
Yeah, boy.
This is not going to scar him at all.
Did he automatically grab the beach balls? Is that what he did? Hey!
He did the bigger ones.
Yeah. Attaboy.
Bigger ones were more fun.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah. That's good genetics.
He claims he doesn't remember this at all.
No, of course. Yeah, no memory whatsoever. Blocked it out.
No.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't leave them home alone. I would just bring them along.
That's better parenting right there. Because
I think so.
It's you're getting a leg up for anatomy class in science.
That's right.
Biology.
They're boobs.
Yep, that's right. Biology. So so when he went into biology class, automatically you should expect him to get A's.
Well, yeah, at least in the upper portion of the anatomy of a woman.
That's right. Sex ed passes automatically. See? He walks in there and goes, I know what that is. That's silicone.
Those aren't real.
Those aren't real. Those are saline. That's silicone. That's going to cost you about 10 grand. And that's what he said to the sex ed teacher.
Oh, mostly I'm a good mom.
Yeah, well, I think you are. My mom never took me to go shop for implants. I'll tell you that.
I just want to clarify, they weren't my implants.
No, I know. I'm just saying. I know they're...
If you ever see me in person, you'll be like, well, you should get your money back.
Wow! Officers arrested. By the way, if you're wondering what happened to Miss Knowles, the tablet, by the way, that she was talking to the kids on was not charged or operational once officers arrived at the unit because the kids really didn't know how to charge it.
No, their only means of communication.
Yeah,
This kaput.
they're 10 and 7. They don't understand charging the actual tablet. And she was gone for 3 days. So
That's insane. Can you imagine?
yeah, well,
I get all like discombobulated when I go to say I go to Chicago for a couple nights or something for work stuff, and I have to leave my kid home with my husband.
you have
Are you guys gonna be okay?
you have too much of a conscience. I mean, really, Jess. I mean, you gotta let all that go.
I'm like, maybe I should just take her with me.
Yeah, that'll be all right. Officers arrested Knowles after she returned to the scrum known as the Kids. During a police interview, she told the detective she was not out of state, but declined to say where she had been. This isn't a welcome to Miami t-shirt. However, police subpoenaed her cell phone records that showed she'd made or received about 50 calls in Florida between February 21st to February 23rd. That's kind of hard to explain. Detectives interviewed the woman's mother and friend. They said she never told them about her plans to travel to Florida. So she had a mother available to drop the kids off to, but why do that when, the kids are perfectly fine to watch themselves for 3 days on their own? Not.
Strange decision making.
Yeah, not exactly solid decision making. Westlake Law Director Michael Maloney said Knowles told police she was traveling to Miami to support her friend undergoing liposuction surgery. At her sentencing hearing on Wednesday, Knowles said, "I understand what I did was wrong, and this absolutely would never happen again," especially since she got caught. "I did believe my kids were able to dress themselves and get themselves to school." How? Driving?
No kidding. She thought they were going to get up and get going for the day and go to school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Throw a little something in the oven,
I don't even have words.
Maybe get some money together for school lunch. I don't know. Maybe make their own lunch. Who knows? "I wouldn't dare let anything happen to my kids," she went on to say. "I wish I could go back and change the circumstances." I bet you do. She opted against having a jury trial and was found guilty by Judge Joseph T. Burke of the Rocky River Municipal Court. I can't even talk right now. I'm so flabbergasted. The quote here is, "Something bad could have happened to the children." This is what the judge had to say to Ms. Knowles. "They could have started a fire in the apartment. They could have hurt themselves or suffered a medical emergency, or they could have been taken by a stranger," Burke wrote in a bench verdict. "But most of all, they needed their mother to be there and parent them and not do so by remote cameras from Florida." That's pretty sound. Knowles was sentenced to 5 years of probation in order to attend a parenting class and mental health counseling. She was given $800 in fines and 360 days of house arrest. She'll be allowed to leave for work, according to WJW. "I don't want to further victimize your daughters by separating you from them," Burke told Knowles in court on Wednesday. "It is now time for you to become the mother that your daughters deserve, need, and require," is how he left that. So there you go. Bizarre story. So, how do you know how much a wheel of cheese is worth, Jess? Well, you put it online and sell it, I guess.
I love cheese.
Cheese is good, I'll tell you. Well, except if you're lactose intolerant. That's not so good.
I did try to go vegan when my stomach was having a lot of issues, and I just couldn't because I had to have cheese.
Indeed.
Nice.
Indeed. When I go to the place where they consider you family, the Olive Garden, I like the when they use the cheese grinder there.
Just keep on grating.
I always tell them like a snow-covered mountain. Just keep going like a snow-covered mountain. They don't like that because they're like, "You son of a bitch, I'm going to get carpal tunnel."
Their neck gets tired. That's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work. But you know what? You signed up for it.
Right. You got to give them a little extra tip for that.
That's right. Yeah, you always throw a couple extra bucks in for the snow-covered mountain. That's for sure. That sounds like something you get at Disney, doesn't it? The snow-covered mountain. Yeah. This next story has to do with fraudsters who wheel away a huge haul of artesian cheddar worth an eye-popping $400,000. Jess won't give you that. She'll give you probably $16 for it. Yep. Probably 16. That's what you'd give them for it. 16, $17.
I mean, I'd pay a little for a bite. I mean, that'll be some good cheese.
The cheese bandits stole 950 wheels of artesian cheese. 950 wheels of artesian cheese after stealing from the company. That's a lot of cheese. I'm about to show you your live stream here. If there's are you ready for this? Take a look at this.
I'm excited.
Look at this.
I'm gonna drool.
Bam.
Ooh, yes.
Look at that.
Yummy. I'm gonna lick my screen.
You're about to make a lot of guys' dreams come true. Cheese bandits wheeled away an eye-popping amount of cheddar cheese from one of the UK's most famous cheese stores. Neil's Yard Dairy announced in a social media post that thieves posing as a legitimate wholesale distributor from a major French retailer ordered 950 wheels of the cloth-bound, how do you pronounce it? Is it Hafud? Is that how it?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Westcombe and Pitchfork cheddar. Are you familiar with the brands?
I'm such a simple girl. I'm only familiar with cheddar and sharp cheddar.
Sharp cheddar, that's a good one. Yeah.
Maybe white cheddar.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
That's all I know.
The cheddar was worth $390,000. It's either Hafad or Hafud. One of the could be Hafad. Someone's going to correct me. Someone's going to.
Hafad sounds right.
Hafad, yeah.
Hafad.
Someone's going to email me and be like, "You don't know your cheese. Listen here, it pairs well with a red, okay, and something with a smoky bouquet. You should know this. You should know this. How long have you been doing this?"
You get all of that tone and everything just from an email.
I do. Yeah. Oh, God. You have no idea. You have no idea the emails I get during the week.
Oh, well, I'm excited to get some to mine.
Okay. Well,
saw that you gave out my email address.
Yeah. You'll be getting them now. Neil's Yard Dairy reportedly delivered 22 metric tons or 48,488 pounds of cheddar before realizing the wholesale distributor was a fake. So, Jess, it's Neil's Yard Dairy. They're very gullible.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you ever want cheese delivered to the house, wink, wink.
Wink.
There you go. Get one of them cheese graters from Olive Garden. Get it ready at the house there.
I'm going to have to bring me home a waiter or waitress for it, though. I don't want to do it myself.
No, they work cheap. The dairy retailer said that they covered the cost from the theft that impacted the smaller cheesemakers. Despite the significant financial blow, we have honored our commitment to our small-scale suppliers and paid all 3 artisan cheesemakers in full, they said. The dairy retailer said they are working with law enforcement and asked residents to be on the lookout for cloth-bound cheddars in a 22-pound or 52-pound format with the tags detached. 52-pound cheese wheel. You ever owned one?
No, but I'd like to.
Christmas is coming.
Definitely wouldn't fit into my dress if I had that, though.
What would you do? First of all, how would the husband react if you had a 52-pound cheese wheel right there on the table?
He would just come home and find me with like my arms and legs wrapped around it, just holding it like a baby, like a big giant baby, just licking it and nibbling on it.
This is my cheese baby. I named it Chucky.
These little bits of cheese stuck to the side of my face.
It's mine. I wrapped it in a cloth and named it Chucky. Christmas is coming. Even a 22-pound. A 22-pound would be.
It would be great. 22 pounds of cheese. Just for you.
Yeah. Think of that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the doctor bills when they have to cut that out of you? I mean, that would be amazing.
You can't go to the bathroom.
I know. You'd be stopped up for a year.
You'd just be eating cheese and drinking prune juice.
Yeah. That'd be an Elvis situation right there. Be stuck on the toilet.
Yeah.
It'd be horrible.
It'd be bad.
Yeah. But well worth
But great,
it.
all at the same time.
Yeah. Like I said, unless you're lactose intolerant. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Another food situation. We go to Florida, where a Florida man jailed on a felony spaghetti a la battery charge.
That's wonderful. I always threaten my kids if they're naughty. I'm 30 lashes with a wet noodle.
My mother did that as well. It was, 50 lashes with a wet noodle. I never knew what that was. I always thought that's never going to hurt me. I'd
this guy really did it, huh? He got in trouble for it?
I'd rather take that because the old man used to hit me over the ass with a wooden spoon. I once broke every wooden spoon in the drawer once.
Oh.
You know how I did it? Buns of steel. I tightened. I would tighten, and the old man would go whack, and it'd break the spoon, and I would laugh. I would giggle, and he'd go get another wooden spoon, and he'd whack, 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 and then he broke another. I know this sounds. I'm horrifying.
It was the day. That's how it was done.
I'm horrifying everybody who's under 30 right now. But I broke 4 or 5 wooden spoons, I think it was, in a row.
That's impressive. See, I would just cry because we got spanked too. My dad actually had a paddle and it had little holes in it. So when it came at you, you could hear it. It was like,
ooh, that's impressive with the
yeah.
Yeah, and
but I would just preemptively get sad and cry because I was so scared. But my brother was like you. He'd be like, I laugh in the face of your paddle.
I laugh in the face of danger. But but it was a wooden spoon, so it was a whack, 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 and then it'd break. You hear this, this snap, and
That's awesome.
So I broke
your ass broke wooden spoons.
But it had a bad ending, Jess, because I broke the last one. I was like, right? I gave like the evil little kid laugh. So then the old man was like, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I won." Then he went into the closet and got the big white thick disco belt. He's like, and he came in and I was like, oh,
you're not going to break that.
Oh, no, I didn't break that night. It broke me. So that was the end of that story.
Boy, we must have been naughty getting all these spankings with objects.
I'm telling you. So I wish I would have had that wet noodle that day.
Yeah.
I wanted that wet noodle.
Yeah. And maybe that's why I never really spanked my kids. I guess, because we did. We got the paddle, we got the belt, we got the spankings.
Yeah.
That was perfectly normal back in the 80s. It wasn't considered child abuse or anything.
I wish I would have got that wet noodle. With
my kids, I'm like, you just have a timeout and think about what you did.
How's that treating you, by the way, the timeout?
It turned out okay.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't have to beat them into submission.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Just threaten it with a noodle.
With the wet noodle?
Yeah.
Turns out that they have wheat belly, so the wet noodle actually works. Is that the deal?
I'm choking in the background. Yes.
Yes, they have wheat belly. So it's like, oh no, not gluten, Mom, not gluten.
Not gluten, Mom. No.
Gluten hurts. Well, a Florida man is behind bars after being charged with spaghetti a la battery, according to records. Police say that 40-year-old Markel Royal and his wife were arguing Sunday evening about Royal's abuse of alcohol when the domestic dispute turned violent. Royal, who cops report appeared to be intoxicated, became irate and threw his bowl of spaghetti at his spouse of 9 years. Bad form. The noodle struck the 44-year-old woman on the front of her body and on her stomach, according to an arrest report. Upon arriving at the pair's Largo residence, officers found the victim covered in the spaghetti sauce. That always amazes me that when cops show up, people remain covered in sauce because they want cops to document it.
Yeah. You want to see the whole aftermath and gore. Not really gore,
the
but
gore of spaghetti sauce.
Gore of sauce.
Look, there's Prego everywhere. It's ragu.
Red like blood.
Red like blood. Tastes delicious. Since Royal's lengthy criminal history includes a 2018 conviction for battering his wife, with whom he has 3 children, he was charged with an enhanced felony battery count. His bond was set at $15,000 during a court hearing yesterday. Royal remains locked up and has been ordered by a judge to have no contact with his wife. Royal's rap sheet spans 20 years and includes 10 cocaine possession convictions.
Dang, this is like his least bad thing then.
Yeah, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
Yeah. Evidently, throwing spaghetti's nothing compared to a little bit of the yayo. He also has other drugs and firearms charges for which he has served time in state prison. So, yeah, spaghetti, not a bad thing. That's minor.
I feel like he's moving in the right direction.
That's right. He is moving in the right direction. That's right. All right. It's time now for our not safe for work category here on Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. Again, if you have children in the room, put them in an apartment somewhere and fly to Florida and get some liposuction. No, I don't know. No, that's a joke from earlier in the program.
Don't do that.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. That gets you charges. If you have children in the room, earmuffs, kids. We're about to talk about adult stuff. If you are at work, put in your earbuds. You don't want the coworkers to hear this or your boss because it's cheeky humor at best. So here we go. We'll do this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This next story is arrestable, but the woman got away with it. Although barely, just barely. A bikini-clad adult star crashed King Charles's appearance with a cheeky 7-word offer, Jess. See, they don't quite have freedom of speech in England. They're close, but not quite.
Okay.
It was an intriguing story. I figured I'd bring it up. There's a woman who's an OnlyFans star over there. Her name is Gigi, and she held up a sign with a lewd offer for King Charles relating to the time he was outed for having an affair with now-wife Queen Camilla when he was married to the late Princess Diana. An adult star made King Charles an offer he might not be able to turn down. Known only as Blonde Gigi, the OnlyFans star turned up at a walkabout that King Charles was taking part in during his trip to Sydney, Australia, earlier this week. But rather than shaking the monarch's hand, she held up a sign with a lewd offer for him, wearing tight skinny jeans and a blue bikini top, leaving little to the imagination. She declared, "Charles, there can be 3 people in your marriage again."
Oh my.
And actually, here's a little picture of her waiting for the king.
Oh, well.
And she actually took
He's
that.
Cute.
Yeah, she took that little jacket off as he approached her.
Well, did he say yes?
We'll find out. She was, of course, referring to the time when King Charles was outed for having an affair with now-wife Queen Camilla when he was married to the late Princess Diana, which later he admitted to, but claimed it was after the marriage had irretrievably been broken down, us both having tried, is the quote, the famous quote, by the way. Gigi posted about the moment she made the offer on social media and captioned the video, "Point of view, you're trying to get the king's number." People were heard shouting "disgusting" and "shameless" at the X-rated star, although some only called it great and hilarious. So some people thought it was great and other people thought it was not so great. Obviously, it is kind of funny. Yeah. Obviously King Charles didn't acknowledge the 22-year-old or the offer. Wow, the king is still able to pull down 22-year-olds. I'm kind of impressed by that. Nearby was a local source who told the Daily Star what happened moments before and after the offer was made. They said the OnlyFans chick yesterday lined up for hours to meet King Charles at Opera House. As he got close, she whipped her jacket off and had this tiny little bikini top on. Security swiftly then moved Charles to the other side of the street in order to avoid her area. And then she held up her sign as she's told to leave. So they escorted her off the premises so Charles wouldn't meet her.
Oh.
Yes. She was not arrested, by the way. They didn't go so far as to arrest her. It wasn't the only time during the trip that some kind of interruption was made towards King Charles after an indigenous lawmaker unleashed a tirade at him during a trip to Australia's Parliament House, slamming the royals with accusations of committing genocide. That was the other thing that happened during the trip. It was Senator Lydia Thorpe, representing Victoria as an Aboriginal Australian independent, who made a beeline for Charles and Camilla and shouted things such as, "You are not my king." So that happened on the trip as well. Here's a picture of Gigi, by the way, without the jacket on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
He's kind of a hottie.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just making a note to self.
Mhm.
Don't proposition the king when in England.
Well, you can take a shot at it if you'd like.
I mean,
just saying. I mean, he may not take you up on it. So there you go. All right, and so we've got this, and then we've got the palate cleanser, and then we're done for the day. So, not safe for work. Second story today. Here it is. We're going to Colorado Springs, where a business owner added an obscene mural to his roof with the quote, "We'll fight back with a dick mural."
Oh my goodness. I was just taking a sip of tea and I almost spit it out.
I saw that.
Oh, that's clever.
Parking disputes aren't out of the normal, but the reaction from one Colorado Springs business owner is gaining a lot of attention online and sparking some controversy. The owner of Fallen Heroes Tattoo and Piercing, David Brown, says the issues with a neighboring apartment complex started several months ago. His business is located just east of Old Colorado City in Colorado Springs. Right next to Brown's business is a 5-story apartment complex. The parking situation isn't ideal for the complex or Brown's business. With a small lot behind multiple businesses, Brown shares the building with and a few street spots off Colorado Avenue. There's an alley between the two buildings, but the parking spots right up against the west side of Fallen Heroes belong to the apartment complex and are permit parking only. There are signs on the apartment complex's side saying the lot is private parking with permits only, but no signs on the Fallen Heroes building. Employees say they don't want to hang signs over a pre-existing mural that advertises their shop, which makes sense. Brown claims that over the course of about 4 months, 30 to 40 of his customers had their vehicles towed from the lot that has private parking signs, but not from the side next to Brown's building. Brown believes the apartment complex could do more to prevent the towing. In response to the allegations, the apartment complex next door was responsible for the towing. Brown had a massive mural of male genitalia painted on his roof and posted the process on Instagram. A new apartment complex just opened up next door to the shop. They've been towing all of our customers' vehicles, along with other customers from nearby businesses. We've tried to play fair, but now we'll fight back with a dick mural, Brown posted in the social media video.
I still want to go there and get a tattoo now.
Several residents of the apartment complex that 11 News spoke to didn't even know the purpose behind the mural. It was disturbing, one anonymous resident explained. I don't have kids or anything. I'm 40 years old, but even just me as an adult, I don't want to look out my window. I have a beautiful view of downtown since I'm on the east side.
Not anymore.
Well, now you got a giant dick looking at you. I mean, it's got one eye, but you know. The mural is a cartoon style personifying the male genitalia. There are more than a dozen of these genitalia on the roof. Oh, it's multiple dicks.
Oh,
Yeah.
all different sizes, shapes, colors.
Well, here's what the mural is, Jess. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
One is riding a hot air balloon. It's creative.
You're going to show me a picture of this, right?
I'm trying to see if there's a picture of it. Another is on a bike and a coupe driving cars. KKTV 11 News chose not to share some other obscene details in the mural, but an unedited version can be viewed by accessing a link at the bottom of this article. Oh, I can access
it. Good. It sounds kind of adorable.
It does, doesn't it? The quote is, "I can understand the confusion of people parking right next to the building," Brown said. It would make sense to me. The spots look like they are part of the building with no lettering in the spots or anything like that. I can't fault anybody that would accidentally park there for either location. Brown isn't faulting the tow company and says he understands they have a job to do. There's a fairly new Colorado law when it comes to non-consensual vehicle towing. According to the law, tow companies are now required to provide 24-hour notice prior to towing a vehicle from residential private properties. But a vehicle may be towed immediately without notice to the following situations. One of them being the residential lot requires a parking permit, but the vehicle does not have it, or the permit is not visible or valid. One of them being the vehicle is parked in a fire lane or another person's designated parking spot. Also, the vehicle blocks a driveway or a roadway. And also, among other new requirements, a towing carrier must release a vehicle if the owner of a vehicle pays the lesser of 15% of the total fees, or $60, and agrees to pay the remaining balance at a later date. Towing carriers are also required to release a vehicle at no charge upon request if it is still located on the private property where it was parked. The tow company that represents the apartment complex is following the law based on the fact that this lot requires permits. When asked why the employees at Fallen Heroes don't tell their customers about the private lot when they enter the store, they explain that the way their shop runs, they don't always get the opportunity to. A representative with the property management company for the apartment complex sent KKTV 11 News the following message over text. At this time, we don't have much to comment on regarding the situation at 532. We actively are working with code enforcement in the city to address the matter. It is important to note that the parking lot between Fallen Heroes and 532 is private property owned by 532 and is reserved for permit parking for its residents. The neighboring building does not have legal access to the lot. So they're basically trying to work it out between the two to figure out who's got, obviously there's access to that private lot is that private lot, and they've got parking for the tattoo place. In the meantime, there's a graphic on the roof. There's a mural, so that people can, let's see here. I'm trying to access the mural.
Okay.
There's a video of this guy painting it, evidently. But I'm looking to see.
Clever way to draw attention to the problem.
It is, yes. I'm trying to see if there's. Let's see. They take you to the Facebook page. Tell you what, I'm gonna post the story in the description of this program, so you can go see it yourself, so that we don't disturb the rating of this video. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, we can talk about penises, but we probably can't show them.
Yeah. So that way you yourself can go to this Instagram page, and you yourself can go see the mural, because it's let's just say the description alone is pretty colorful. Just the fact that one's in a hot air balloon, I think, is pretty interesting.
I know. What a cute idea. I would have never thought to put a penis in a hot air balloon or on a bike.
I just want to know how it's.
I mean, they go on those things, but just usually not alone.
Right. I just want to know how it steers the balloon. I mean, there's no appendages to, fire up the flames. You could.
It just blows on things.
So
Can it do that? I don't know. So it just swings around and hits.
All right. Our palate cleanser for the Dick mural.
Please do. Get it out of my... I'm over here trying to figure out how I would function if I was a penis and had no hands.
trying to ride a bike or or drive a hot air balloon.
Cleanse my palate, Tim.
I put that in your head. It turns out that there's still upstanding Americans playing professional sports.
Oh, I like that.
You keep hearing about degenerates in sports and grown men who get into trouble all the time in professional sports. Well, it turns out there's one upstanding American in American sports. And I'm going to tell you about him.
Okay, I'm ready.
And especially in professional football. Well, it turns out he's a kicker. Okay, he's a kicker. But this kicker missed practice for an unusual reason. That being jury duty.
Oh.
Yeah. And the kicker here, get it? The kicker here.
Yeah.
Is that he didn't even have to. He was willing to be.
How does that work?
Well, they were willing to excuse him because of his status. Turns out that Brandon Aubrey, who's the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys, insisted on going to jury duty this week. He could have been subbed with an alternate juror, but he insisted on doing his duty. Interesting.
Good for him.
Dallas Cowboy kicker Brandon Aubrey missed practice on Wednesday, and NBC Sports reports his absence was for a potentially unprecedented injury report designation. That would be jury duty on a felony assault case that involves second-degree strangulation. That, according to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. The paper notes that the Cowboys were going to try to help Aubrey get out of it, but Aubrey insisted on fulfilling his duty on Wednesday. Although it's not clear how long the case would last, it anticipated that Aubrey would also miss practice on Thursday and Friday, so he could attend court proceedings in Tarrant County. ESPN noted that if Aubrey had tried to get out of his juror responsibilities, both sides and Judge David Hagerman would have agreed to install an alternate juror. So he didn't have to be there. On the plus sides for Aubrey's gameplay, the case doesn't involve sequestering jurors, so he's free to do what he wants during the evenings and on weekends. So the Dallas Cowboys played San Francisco last night. Or not last night. We're taping this on Monday, so it would have been Sunday. He did appear in the game, and he did play in the game, so jury duty didn't affect that. The quote here is kudos to Aubrey for not shying away from an important civic function. That according to Mike Florio for NBC. He says jury duty is critical to a properly functioning society. So there you go. There's at least one honest pro football athlete out there. Dallas Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey, who believed in still doing his duty and doing jury duty.
Good boy.
There you go. It's unusual to hear of a pro athlete who says, you know what? I want to do my civic duty. I'm gonna go do jury duty, and I'm gonna skip practice to do it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. He even had an out. They were gonna let him out.
They were gonna let him out. They said you're fully excused. We'll get an alternate juror. You do what you need to do. So I just find that admirable that he
I like that too. I hope he got a fun case.
Well, it was a strangulation case. It wasn't necessarily fun.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was second-degree strangulation, but he just believed he should be there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but he just believed he should be there for the duration of the case. So, there you go.
Good guy.
Yeah, there you go. So that'll do it for today for Dumb Crime Stupid Criminals. Again, I want to remind you guys what Jess has done here. So we're giving away 2 tickets. Jess is giving away 2 tickets for the upcoming Palmer trip. Now, mind you, you have to pay for your room. There's 1 room left at the Palmer for November 14th to the 17th, the Ghost Stories Inc. trip up at the Palmer. The way you enter this contest to win 2 tickets to the upcoming trip is to send an email to jessica@jessicafreeberg.com. Don't send it to me, because I ain't going to get you nothing but a funny email from me. I'm just going to go in the email and send it back to you. So that's all you're going to get from me. And I'll spell it out too.
I want to know, how do you spell that?
Just E and then a bunch of H's in capital letters. And I'll send it back to you. But when you send that email to Jess to enter, you need your name, your address, your phone number, and the phrase that pays, which is, I want a ghost hunt with Jess and Tim. You put all that in an email. You send it to jessica@jessicafreeberg.com, and you'll be entered to win 2 tickets to the weekend up at the Palmer with Ghost Stories, Inc. And you can ghost hunt. And keep in mind, it is a theme weekend. So it's a 1920s theme weekend. So bring your best 1920s outfit. So
be ready to have fun.
Yeah, get ready to have fun. If you want to find out more about the weekend, there's a link in the description of this program so you can find out all about the trip and what kind of fun we're going to have. So there you go. Right, Jess?
Can't wait.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's incredibly...
I was going to tell you, I actually had one of our listeners come to our event this weekend at the Manor, Eric. He came and I was like, well, how did you hear about it? And he goes, I heard it on Darkness Radio. I was like, well, hello, friend.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really fun to hang out with a Darkness friend. So
that's very cool.
I hope we have some people enter, and I'm excited to give this away to you guys.
Yes, very cool. So there you go. Again, very generous that Jess wants to do this in honor of the Halloween weekend. A little trick or treat, so to speak, from Jess and Ghost Stories Inc. So there you go. A little trick. Actually, it's more of a treat than a trick.
Yeah, we're not going to sell you, you win and then take it away.
That's right. It's a little Halloween treat from Ghost Stories Inc. So 2 lucky winners. It'd be 1 lucky winner, and you get to bring a friend. So.
Get to bring a friend.
There you go. So 1 lucky winner will get a little Halloween treat and get to bring a friend up to the Palmer House Hotel in Sauk Center, which that's really, really cool. So special thanks to Jessica and to Ghost Stories Inc. for that little treat. And we'll draw this now next week on next week's True Crime Tuesday. So, and Jess, we'll post it on social media. We'll post it here. We'll play the video here. You guys will find out who the winner is next week on the program. You have 1 week in which to get your, actually a little less than a week to get your
I was just thinking we should probably tell them, like, the cutoff is going to have to be, I would say, Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we typically record on Monday. So the cutoff for entering would have to be, I have to look at my Sunday the 3rd, November 3rd.
There you go. So Sunday, November 3rd is your cutoff. So get your entries in right now. Don't wait. In fact, we should probably post on, you want to post it today probably then?
Sure.
Okay. We'll post it on social media. You'll get it ahead of time on social media. We'll announce it. We're, of course, announcing it today on the program. But get your stuff in now for that, and we'll announce it next week on the show. So there you go.
Can't wait.
It's going to be fun. All right. So a little bit of a look at this week. Tomorrow, Supernatural News with Mally Fox. Do you want to know what's coming up this week?
Always want to know.
I think I can tell you safely.
I
think. No.
You're going to just tease, or are you going to just tell?
I'll tell you. I'll just tell you. We've got a special Halloween show this week with Christopher Jordan. Good friend of ours. Christopher Jordan's coming on. And it's all about Halloween. It's a special history of Halloween show. So
that's going to be such a good one.
yeah. So we've got a special History of Halloween show with Christopher Jordan. So it's going to be a good show. So we've got
listening.
Got a great week in store for you guys. So that's the week in tow for Darkness Radio. So there you go. That'll do it. All right. With that, check out the Darkness Radio store, darknessradioshow.com. Check out Jess's books, 2 of them. The links are in the description of this program. And again, get your entries in right now. You've got until Sunday to get those entries in. That'll do it. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow for Supernatural News. For Jessica Freeberg, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for joining us today on the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday.